In 1862, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It passed Congress in 1865, giving birth to the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution, where it declared that, in essence, no person of U.S. citizenship should be subject to slavery or indentured servitude unless otherwise convicted of a crime. After that, they passed this law called the vacancy law, meaning if a person couldn't show that they had a place of residence or employment, they can go to jail. And this gave birth to mass incarceration of those free blacks at that time. And then they came up with this term called convict leasing, where they would lease out convicts for free labor, some to former slave owners or to railroads where labor was in great demand. And this is what led to this thing of what we have in America today, mass incarceration. Right? In 1966, my family was one of 3 black families on a block in the Austin community on the west side of Chicago. And as we go to school, trying to go to the parks, having to fight people of other ethnic groups just to go swimming, parks, other black children followed me and my brothers as we led the charge to go to these public facilities. And as time went on, there were gangs coming in. And I remember being surrounded by, me and my little homies, we were surrounded by this street gang, the Vice Lords. And they noticed how we were standing on our own. And they asked who was the leader. We didn't even consider ourselves a street gang. We were just young guys trying to just make it in the neighborhood. And everyone looked at me. And I got inducted as the youngest chief of one of the branches of the conservative Vice Lord Nation at the age of 14 years old. 1968, Martin Luther King got assassinated. Racial tension was high. It was that same year that me and hundreds of young blacks had graduated out of the 8th grade and went to this predominant white high school, Austin High School in the Austin community. And I remember going to my classes, excited that I was in this clerical office procedure program that I would learn business math, bookkeeping, typing, these things. At the end of these 4 years, I would go into the world of clerical services. But one day, racial tension was so high and a riot broke off, and I found myself defending myself against these white attackers. And a couple of my buddies joined in, and when it was over, we all got suspended. Nothing happened to them because we was in their community, we was in their school, and they said I was the ringleader, and I was the only one ended up in a juvenile courtroom. And I remember the judge asking my parents did they want me to go to school. And of course, my parents said yes. But my parents didn't realize at that moment, they handcuffed me, took me out the courtroom, and I could hear my mother crying. And I could look back and see my father slumped down, powerless, because they didn't know what just happened. And they put me on this van and drove me to a juvenile maximum security prison in Joliet, Illinois. I was 15 years old, confused, feeling that my parents had gave me up, feeling like this was wrong, society is unjust, and I am in this juvenile maximum security prison with all the stories I heard of guys getting molested, guys getting raped and taken advantage of, and I'm 15 years old, and I'm in this cell, and that night I'm thinking to myself, I will kill someone before I let them molest me. But then the ambivalence, the part was I wasn't made up to kill. I was not a violent person, but I was in a situation. This was trauma. I was traumatized at 15 years old in this maximum security juvenile facility. I had never been to the juvenile detention center, and that morning, out in the day room, guys had been to the Arty home, they had met each other, and we stayed in intake for maybe a week and go in the general population and run to all these street gangs from the south side of Chicago, the north side of Chicago. And I was from the west side in the Austin community, a community no one really never heard of. So I was challenged by the leader of one of the Blackstone Rangers, a street gang. I wanted to go home. I didn't want no trouble. I wanted to do good and go home. They said I can go to a camp, do 3 months, and I can go home. I wanted to go home. And he pushed the issue. My father always told me, if you show a guy you got some fear, give him more courage. So I said, well, okay, let's go. And we got the boxing. Then I realized he couldn't box. I fold him up like a napkin, right? Then I just went crazy. Any other vice lords up in here? And they hurry up and shipped me out of Joliet to St. Charles, where all the rough guys was at. That dream of going to camp was over. St. Charles was where all the rough guys was at. So I found myself in St. Charles, same situation, guys from the south side, different gangs, defending myself. So those 3 months turned to 2 years. I came out at 17 years old, ill prepared to function in society. My peers, 17, were coming out of high school and got a driver's license while they were in school, worked some part-time jobs while they were in school. I couldn't compete because I was 17, trying to find a job. Schools wouldn't accept me because I was labeled a juvenile delinquent. The pressure. Where can I go? With my other peers that had the same background as me, and we hit the streets. And I didn't realize that was going to lead to years of prison. I ended up in prison at 19 years old. I didn't come home until I was 27 years old, ill prepared to function in society. 4 months later, back in prison, 3 more years. And I came out ill prepared to function in society, close to 30 years old. And I remember the last time in jail, I was faced with an attempt burglary. And they told me I had a chance if I pleaded as a drug addict, because I became a heroin addict, I can get mandated to treatment. I took upon this task of claiming I was an addict, and I went to treatment. They mandated me to TASK, Treatment Alternative Street Crime. Now it's Treatment Alternative Safer Communities. And I remember the judge asking why should he give me the program, because the state's attorney challenged the lawyer of me getting this program. You know, he said, well, Your Honor, this man's a known gang leader. He's been charged with murder, gang racketeering, kidnapping, I said, oh, Lord, I ain't going to get the program this morning. But, you know, God got a way of moving judges. And Judge Moran asked me, why should I give you this program? I said, Your Honor, because it's cold outside, and I don't have a coat. I never completed school. I never worked. And if you let me out this morning, I might be forced to go take a coat. And I don't want to do that. I've been to prison on 3 occasions, and I don't want to go back. And I believe this program may help me. In spite of my background, Judge Moran mandated me to treatment. I walked out to Cook County Jail November 15, 1984. That was the last night I spent in any prison 34 years ago. But my biggest challenge was these invisible punishments that formerly incarcerated and convicted people face. They're called collateral consequences. In reality, they are social disabilities, laws and policies that restrict us from employment. You know, America makes up 5% of the world population, but America has over 25% of the world incarcerated population locked up. Here in Illinois, 70% of the people in Illinois prisons are repeated offenders. A lot of new people aren't going to prison in Illinois. It's the same people that's going in and out of prison. When I first went to the county jail, it was like a homecoming. All them same guys that was in the juvenile facility with me, I met them in the county jail. When I got to prison, same guys. Older guys had been in the same juvenile back in the 40s and 50s. It's like we was on the same cycle. So my biggest challenge was, how do I cross this line from being an outlaw to become a citizen? And it's hard being a citizen, because citizens obey the law. I've been breaking the law all my life. So when they gave me a piece of paper and said, put a resume together, the only thing I could put on was my name. Because the part where it said a career objective, I had to leave it blank because I didn't know what objective means, and I didn't have a career. Then the part where it said work history, I had to leave it blank. The part where it said educational background, I had to leave it blank, because as far as I went to school was a freshman in 1968, and I didn't complete that. So I'm looking at this piece of paper, and the message I got was, who's going to hire me? It's this double conscience that W.B. Du Bois talked about that most black folks have, how we view ourselves and how we believe the world view us. And here I am. How do people view people like me with criminal backgrounds? Will I get a job? Right? So I find myself trying to look for jobs, getting rejected here, getting rejected there, right? And finally, I became part of the support network, and they normalized what I was going through. They told me I'm not crazy because I'm thinking with the ambivalence. A part of me wanted to do right, but then I run into these barriers, and I'm getting frustrated, and I had more confidence in my hustling skills than I did in working a job. I was able to follow this lead through the support network, and I got my first job at a warehouse, and I find myself fighting to become this citizen, right? And I find myself sitting in a GED class at 32 with young children calling me pops because I'm asking questions. They laughing at the questions. I want to hit one of these little moms in that, but I don't want to get put out the class. I have to humble myself. And it was this support network that gave me what I need to hang in there. And I got my GED. And then after completing parole, and one of my old case managers called me and said, hey, they got a counselor position in Evanston, Illinois. Why don't you apply for it? In my mind, I've never been to Evanston in my life, but I'm thinking Evanston is a rich white suburb. They're going to lock me up as soon as I get off this air platform. But it was my support network that encouraged me, go for it, you can do it. And I went up, and I interviewed, and they hired me. But here I am sitting in this staff meeting, and we discussing cases, and they're using all these clinical terminologies. This client struggle with maladaptive behavior. This one has impaired social skills. In my mind, I want to say something like, all that Ma got to do is bust that out of his game. He can be straight. But see, you can't use slang in a professional setting. And I would leave work every day feeling so inferior, feeling so incompetent, giving myself the message, I don't belong here. But where can I go? Back in my little box. And I've been in this box all my life. And who's in this box? Gang members, drug addicts, convicts, high school dropouts. And here I am outside the box working, and I want to go back in my box. But it was the support network that I was part of encouraged me to get in school. And I went to school, and I got an associate's degree in mental health and substance abuse. Then I took the state board exam, became a certified drug abuse counselor. Then I moved up, and I went back, got a bachelor's degree in inner city studies. Then I became a director of a program by that time. Then I got invited to Israel, where I spoke on youth violence. Spent a month over there. Then I got invited to Ghana, West Africa, where I talked about reentry. Right? Then I went back and got my master's degree in leadership development and education. And right after that, the same university, Northeastern, they hired me as an adjunct professor in the Justice Studies Department. Right? And I noticed in 2009, a lot of people was coming out of prison. They was calling on me because they wanted to figure out how do you stay out of prison. And I called a meeting with 47 formerly incarcerated and convicted people. And we came together and we designed this voting block. How do we organize the 4.1 million people in Illinois that have convictions in their background? And how we can speak on our own issues, change policies, right? In Illinois, there's over 80 licenses still today after being out 34 years with the degrees I have, I can't even apply for. Right? If I go and try to get an apartment, they may say, well, we don't hire convicted felons. Right? These are called collateral consequences. So the question is, where does my wrong end and my rights begin? Right? So I formed this organization called NAFI, National Alliance for the Empowerment of the Formerly Incarcerated. And what we do is try to show formerly incarcerated and convicted people how to market themselves as convicted felons. Right? How do you face the trauma? Because this is trauma. How do you face that traumatic moment in an interview when they say, we do background checks, and some people fall apart? How do you face that traumatic experience after the interview and you're hoping, praying, maybe they don't do the background, or maybe they'll let me pass because they like me? So today, my plight is to raise awareness of society, raise awareness of formerly incarcerated and convicted people. Change is possible. There are some opportunities. I'm just one of millions of people have gotten out, turned my life around, and now doing the work. So the question again I pose to you, Where does guys like me wrongs end and my rights begin? Thank you.